And actually, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because I know me.
You know, so that's our life mission. That's the McShin's mission.
You don't have to understand my boundaries to respect them.
Well, no, I'm the president and co-founder of McShin, a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorders.
How do you go about fixing the damage in the trust between the family after you get out?
Like, okay, I gotta work on that. Like,
Celebrating my 6 months. Didn't have cake.
Yeah.
gosh, you showed up.
Hello, folks. John Shinholser here, live in Richmond, Virginia, with the McShin Foundation, with our world-famous, award-winning podcast. Today, we're going to have an incredible conversation with John Millen from the Millen Group, correct?
That's correct.
And I'm going to let John introduce himself real quick, and then I'm going to tell you how he come about to be on the show today, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thanks, John. So it's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it. So John Millen, based in Richmond, Virginia, and my wife, Laura, started the Millen Group 20 years ago. We're essentially an independent benefit advisory firm. We have clients across the country, and we predominantly work with small, mid-sized employers to help them enhance the benefits that they provide their employees, because right now, especially attracting and retaining employees is so important, and adjusting with the times is important as well, to be nimble in adjustment with that.
Well, good. We're going to talk about the adjustment
We
of
are.
time. But for the folks that don't know me, I'm also the co-founder of McShin. I'm president and board member emeritus, and I'm now senior peer. But I'm also a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorders. For me, that means I've been clean and sober over 40 years. And I've been in this recovery space now for 23 years as an advocate, but 19 years as a provider, service provider, running a recovery center here in Richmond, Virginia. But the way this particular podcast come about, you know, how does small business intersect with small business service providers, so to speak, you know? And John came to my office the other day, and John happens to be our health insurance provider for the McShin Foundation. And we got to talking. I never met John before, and he just asked me a lot of questions about my recovery journey, and next thing I knew, an hour and a half went by. But more important than that, John got to thinking, put his thinking cap on, and then, you know, hell, that night the next night I saw a press release with the video, and John, he got all kind of thinking on how to help not only small firms, but he does sell insurance, but how to make sure he can sell policies that actually cover mental health and addiction and not get caught up with the big insurance providers' traps and barriers. So first thing I want to ask you, Johnny, you came to McShin the other day. We had a long visit.
We did.
And when you got here, what were your expectations? But when you left, what did you get?
So I had heard a lot about your organization, not just before we started working with you as a relationship on your benefits package, but through Deborah Willis, who's part of our team. She's great. She's been in the healthcare field for 40 years in Richmond, and before we started working with you, she had mentioned your name. So I was sort of familiar with the concept. I knew generally what you did in terms of helping people with addiction. To be honest, I didn't understand fully all that you did. And, you know, when you say addiction, your brain can go to crack or meth, but it's really opioids, alcohol, and now it's all kinds of substances. So
yeah, it's everything. There is no single substance when you speak of addiction.
It's a lot. And the reason I wanted to come in is, number one, meet you in person, because Deborah said, you've got to meet John. And that's what was so fascinating, is your story. Very few times in life do you have a chance to meet someone that's a real change maker. Someone that has a true passion for helping other people, does it for the right reasons, and that's you. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to meet you and hear your story for where you came from, because I'm becoming more aware of this problem of addiction, and so I wanted to hear firsthand from someone that's been around it for a long time, and that's why I wanted to come.
And then, okay, so you came, you had expectation, but when you left, you must have had a fire in your belly.
I did.
So how'd you feel when you left here?
So I felt empowered. I felt a sense of energy, because in my field, I work with employers. So these could be employers with 5 employees or employers with 500 employees. And I started realizing as we were talking all the situations I've had in the last 20 years where mental health, substance abuse, alcohol abuse, and all these things started rising to the surface and people were talking about it more. And I realized, wait a minute, we are the advisors to CEOs, presidents, executive directors, CFOs, HR directors, that we never talk about this as much as I think we should. And I think it's underlying this is happening. And you educated me about the stats of how many people this is affecting. What was that?
The truth is 86 million Americans, according to Tom McClellan, the former deputy drug czar of White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, 86 million Americans every day are walking around either with full-blown addictions, gonna get addicted, consequences related to a substance, some life-changing, so it's a crazy amount of number. 25% of our population is personally teetering on the edge with or going to get or could be.
Yeah, that was shocking to know. It was
And then 25 million American in recovery and 25 million American need recovery, and that's that other 36 million on the edge. It could be a DUI. They could take a bad pill at a party, that kind of stuff. So,
oh yeah. So what changed is I was already moving in that direction of saying, hey, what can we do to help? But it wasn't clear in my head. And then it kind of all came together and crystallized. I said, we have a chance to help some employers, not every employer, because it has to do with a little bit of the size of how big they are. There's some things we can do from the insurance side to help. Because what I'm realizing is I'm hearing employees now, it's coming back to me, I would do that, but the insurance doesn't cover it.
Right. So you're selling policies that it looks like things are covered, but when they try to access the coverage, all of a sudden there's a barrier.
That's right. And we sell anything, so we're independent. So I'm not beholden to anyone. But there's been some new techniques we've done in the last few years that have really helped customize the plan and give them access.
We're gonna just you brought it up now. Let's talk about that real quick because me and my wife watched your video, and here you are. I've never in my whole life heard of a guy selling insurance saying, "Look, the big boys are going to say they cover mental health and addiction, but in reality, when you go to access it, there seem to be barriers in place, and they play games, So, but you got a product that can eliminate that. Is that what I'm hearing?"
We do in certain circumstances. I think what I've learned now when I say independent, that means I don't work for the insurance company.
Right.
I'm a broker between the insurance provider and the client.
Correct.
So I'm a middleman. I get paid a certain way to find and place benefits, base insurance policies. So I can use anybody I want. In the process of the last 3 to 4 years, I really started learning, why is healthcare so messed up? And we talked about this when you mentioned about the politics of recovery, and we maybe can get into that in a second, but I learned that healthcare is a $4 trillion industry. $4 trillion. That's the ecosystem of healthcare, the hospitals, the insurance, and everything. And I brought some visuals. This is a $100 trillion world economy. And the United States is a $25 trillion industry. Now this is 2022.
Well, our national debt is greater than our industry.
Our GDP.
Yeah.
The healthcare industry.
I'll hold it to the camera over here. Get a little closer, I think. Where's that camera? Up there, Art? Yeah.
The healthcare ecosystem in the U.S. is $4 trillion. That's bigger than most countries except for China, India, Japan, and the U.S. So what I'm realizing is it's not that there are bad people in the network or in the system. It's just that industry, whatever the question is, the answer is money. When people ask, why is that, I say money. And this comes from Craig Lack, who is one of my mentors. He said, look, whatever the problem you see in healthcare, the answer is usually money. And when it comes to a $4 trillion system, it does not want to reduce cost. Everyone in that ecosystem makes more money as costs go up. And when you start to understand the facts about how it works, this is the first thing I tell CFOs and CEOs. You have to spend some time understanding how it works, and then you can address the problem. Because if you're in a fantasy land thinking you can't do anything about it, then you're not going to do anything about it. And so that's the biggest thing I start with is, why is it that these things are happening? And it's not a conspiracy theory. It's not something that is a rogue idea. It's just something that people have to understand. This system does not want to adjust.
Look how good Art is. He took a picture of that and popped it up on that. And he's good. Good job, Art.
That is good. I'm
Thanks.
going to hire you.
I noticed Russia wasn't on here.
Russia should be on there.
Oh, I didn't see it.
They're not.
But anyway, it don't matter.
Yeah, but
Well,
that's
it's
a big.
probably on.
that-
Yeah, it's on there. You're right.
That's a big amount of money.
Yeah.
So really, when I talk to employers, the biggest competitor is not another broker. The biggest competitor is the status quo. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Don't change. Don't change. You're being fed information from the 4 trillion ecosystem, and inherently, it's not working efficiently and it's misaligned.
So, okay, you got knowledge of $1 trillion, whatever. But what can a small business or any business, you're talking about a product that, hey, look, I want to sell you a product, an insurance product, that when you need mental health and addiction services, they're not going to play games. You're going to get it. That's what you're paying for. You'll get it when you need it, not when they say you qualify for it.
Exactly.
So give me just a little peek behind the curtain on
Nope.
that.
It's really simple. And essentially, what you can do when there's different ways of building a health plan without getting into all the details.
Right.
There's 6 different financing ways you finance the spend. So whenever you're writing a check to Anthem, UHC, Cigna, Aetna, whatever it is, that money is a financing piece of your organization. So that's a whole business unit of that organization, and you can finance that 6 ways. Most people only know 1 or 2, which is fully insured and maybe level funded, but there's 4 other types that I encourage employers to at least look at. It doesn't mean they should do it or it makes sense.
Get educated. Do your homework.
And when I say this, I say, do you know the 6 areas? And they don't. They know the 1 or the 2. And then I say, or they say, my broker handles this. I said, great. My broker's Bob. He's my brother-in-law. Fantastic. Whose money is it? It's your money. It's not Bob's money. In fact, Bob makes more money most likely when your costs go up because he gets a percentage. So I'm educating the employers to stop just taking what they're being told.
What are the six areas?
So the 6 is fully insured, level funded, full self-insured, partial self-insured, cost plus, and a new one it's not really a funding source, but it's a new technique called ICRAs. And so these are all different ways that you can look at your spend, and some
Are they all compatible with pricing, or some more expensive than others? I imagine.
So the pricing is different. The pricing is higher or lower depending on what your need is.
What do we do here at McShin?
You have a fully insured plan because we have around 10 on medical.
10 that are getting it.
Right. And so as you get bigger, those options open up. So sometimes small organizations like 10, we're limited in what we can do without really disrupting the employees. But when you get to 40 or 50 on medical or more, you have all the options. So I routinely talk to CFOs that have 85 people on medical, and they're just not quite aware, or they're not using their mindset about how they can address
What's
this.
the best one out of the 6? The gold standard.
The gold standard, it's not always, I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's a wholesale plan. And so what I explain is, I use this analogy of Jif peanut butter. If I need Jif, I love peanut butter. I eat it by itself out of the jar. My family thinks I'm weird. If I want peanut butter, I can get it at Food Line or Publix,
Wherever,
or Kroger, or I can go to Costco. It's the same peanut butter.
Is it cheaper at Costco?
It's a lot cheaper at Costco.
Really? I didn't know that.
And you get a little bit more. They get like 5 jugs of it. So it's cheaper, but it's the same thing. That's buying wholesale. Most employers in the under 500 space are buying retail. And when you buy retail, you're captive.
Well,
part of that
can
piece.
you be small and buy wholesale?
You can. You can. In fact, I brought a press release. This is another one of an organization in Richmond, Capital Area Health Network. Fantastic organization. They've got 6 locations.
Hey, Steve, come over here for a minute. I'm going to have you put this up to the camera.
They are an organization that provides health care to the local community in Richmond.
Keep talking.
And they were struggling with, over the period of time, rising costs, reduction of coverage. And so we talked to them about a year and a half ago and started talking about this concept.
Well, the camera's right there.
I think I can find it and then just post it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can give you that PDF. But that's an example of 80 employees on medical, small mid-sized company pouring their energy into the community as a nonprofit, and now they're able to take care of their employees with it.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve. There you go. There you go. Look at the picture there, just like a little kid. Twist it a little bit so the twist looks right. Push your left hand forward a little bit so it's standing up nice and straight. I mess with everybody
You're
around
doing
here,
good.
John. He got a job, man. I guess
He
they can
does.
read that. I can almost read it. Anyway, that's wonderful.
The point is,
Right.
the 80 people on medical, they were taking care of the community. They were getting hammered on renewals, and they were in a retail plan, and so we moved them over to buying wholesale, which reduced their cost and improved their coverage.
Is that something they need to re-up every year for? Because I noticed in recent years, it's like my health plan I got through my wife's company. Like every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, we get a new company, new card, or
Oh, okay.
what's up with that game?
The game, the 3-year flip.
3 years, and that's what it is.
So insurance companies typically they go through cycles, just like most businesses. Some cycles they want volume and lower profit. Sometimes they want higher profit and lower volume. So you'll find carriers in marketplaces, like in Richmond, you've got just a few. You have Anthem, you have United Healthcare, and Optima. Now you have Cigna if you're larger. You have Aetna in that middle space. So you maybe have 3 to 5 options, and they
Right.
compete for the business every year. And so what happens is your rates go up and up and up 3 years in a row. The coverage got worse, and so someone else comes in and undercuts it and drops it back down. But
Right.
the trend is still
Going up.
going up.
I mean, I've had insurance my entire life, but I've noticed what I paid, years ago and what I'm paying now. It's like that never levels off. Always goes up.
And that probably, it's inflation. What was inflation last year? The CPI was what, 10 plus?
Yeah, I don't know what it was.
So it was over 10% for a while there, and it probably still is. Healthcare inflation is a lagging indicator. You're going to see that, or you're seeing that now in
Right.
renewals, because everything goes up. But the other thing I tell people is, number one, understand how the system works, but understand the one thing you can do to control the cost over time. There's one piece of your spend that's 80% of it. Most people spend time on the 20, and they forget the main thing. The main thing is your claims, how much you spend and what you pay for that cost. If you don't address that, you're going to be in this endless cycle. And so what a custom plan does is it takes control of the claims and helps to minimize that spend over time. So you bend the curve down.
I want to take a minute this time to explain. When I was talking to you yesterday, John, I've been in this space, the recovery space, for years, decades. And you're the first guy that I ever met in my office, I think, that was genuinely interested in the dynamics of our organization, my journey in recovery. And it was like you really cared, but at the same time, you were happy to be engaged with somebody in recovery from addiction. Now, normally when you meet a stranger you never met before, they want to get in, get out, like they don't want to catch what you got, you know what I mean? But hell, you'd have probably spent the night if we had put the cot out, And I was it was such a refreshing experience.
Thank you, appreciate
as a
it.
professional in the space, doing your job, and I guess your daily routine. And that speaks volumes, I think, to the character of the man and the business you're in and really what you're trying to do. It's almost like, oh my God, we got an honest, insurance salesman here,
I know, really.
Yeah, he really cares about his people, but
Insurance and honest.
but he's thinking for
And
you.
salesperson.
Yeah, he's thinking for you. So, like when we first started McShin 19 years ago, we had a problem with insurance. Everything we got was assigned risk. We don't want to insure you. You're a bunch of addicts. We don't trust you. Don't love you. Don't care. Go away. But yet now it's like, like we're fully valued and respected, and that really touched
But it took
my
you
heart.
it took you a long time, probably early on, to get through that.
Well, I think as we did a lot of work and the stigma sort of dropped a little bit with
Sure.
overall addiction and whatnot, I hope people are experiencing this everywhere in America right now, just not here at McShin. But I've seen a trend, and you're proof of that trend, is that, we are valuable. We bring credit to the community, to the business world, and the business world is embracing that.
Absolutely. And I think what's happened is, you ever heard the analogy, if you start thinking about stuff gets attracted to you. I don't know what it's called, or if it's karma or faith, but there have been 2 instances, more than two in the last few months that are not ironic. I'll give you real quick. When we meet with the employers, and I'm not going to say the name of the employer, when we meet with them, we talk to the employees afterwards and help them understand what they're getting. And their employer is spending a lot of money. We're saying, hey, one-on-one personalized counseling, it's very confidential. This gentleman, and I think it was methadone, it was a pill for opioid,
Suboxone?
something like that. He had to buy it every day. And it
That's methadone.
Methadone?
Yeah.
$17, $20 a day.
Yeah, I
It
guess
was
that's-
not covered by insurance because he had a high deductible HSA plan. He's talking to the counselor, Melanie, in my office, and basically he told her that, and she said, you have another plan we put in that has pharmacy coverage. And he had been in the meeting, he had seen the book, but it took 3 times for him to recognize, what do you mean? She looked up the prescription. It was a $45 copay for the month. He went from $500 a month
to 45.
to 45. Now, I don't know much about drug addiction and prescriptions, but I'm thinking the adherence is pretty high when it's only $45.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey, I can skip a day. I don't have $17.
That's the only thing. Art, can you think of anything? What else you buy?
That sounds like Suboxone.
a daily. You buy by the day.
It's so for a month supply is about $520.
Yeah, but he said he was getting it every day though.
I mean, I guess if you're not covered, I remember paying stuff like that in California.
Yeah, it could be Suboxone.
It was like 500. That's what we ran
That's
the numbers.
a full prescription's about $516, something like that.
So that's the other thing we find is that the health savings accounts that are these are the high deductible plans that were brought out in 2003, were great in that period of time because deductibles were $250. Now deductibles are $4,000 and $5,000. So we have a lot of people that are still on this, and this is the other education I talk to employers about is, look, you think you're saving money on an HSA plan, you're not really saving that much anymore. You used to, but yet they still are living back 10 years ago, and this is an example. This gentleman was on the HSA plan because it was a little less expensive, but he was spending $6,000 a year for his recovery. So when we took over this account, we said, look, we need to have another plan that has prescription coverage, and it has to be good prescription coverage. And that's just one recent one that makes you feel pretty good when you help someone.
Right. Yeah, another thing I liked about you and I felt was a good hit was I told you, I turned 65 in the summer, so I'm going to do Medicare. Yeah, Medicare, that's what it's called. And did you sell it? You said, no, I don't sell it, but I got somebody I can refer you to. Well, before the day was up, I had a phone call. The next day I got an appointment set, for June for this Medicare provider, I'm assuming. They break it down for me, and we had a great long conversation. So I appreciate that referral there. So, and by the conversation I had with this company and this person, I felt completely confident this person is going to guide me in the right direction. So
I love to mention them because they are so good at what they do. It's Boomer Insurance Group in Richmond. Right. Brian Gay started the company. He's been doing it for 18, 19, 20 years. So I immediately refer. That's who we refer all of our clients to. Because it's the right thing to do.
It's always a good experience.
It's always a good experience. Medicare is so convoluted. I don't.
Convoluted is a good word for it. You know what I mean? How complicated can it be? You work your whole life. You're paying this your whole life. It should be real simple when it goes to collect. Yep. They should cover everything, and this is what's coming out your Social Security or whatever. Now, speaking of different companies, you said your wife started this company.
She did.
So you're a minority-owned company?
We are.
Yeah.
51%. I'm 49.
So you're minority operated at the house, and you're minority
owned. I'm married to her.
Yeah,
So I don't have any say. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. So she's still with you, still around?
She is. She started it. She was a CPA and got tired of. She was in a male-dominated industry, and her level was capped. And back then they would say things like, "I hope you don't have a baby and leave us sometime soon." They would say stuff. Now you get lawsuits.
Right.
So she started it
you
by
can think
herself.
It, but better not say it.
That's it right there. Is Laura?
Laura.
Is that? Yeah.
That's Laura. Yeah. So she started it 20 years ago in the basement of her apartment. And that's where she became an independent business owner and learning that it's not easy. In fact, it's really hard. When you started this organization, it wasn't easy.
Nah.
People look at it now
it come natural, but it won't easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were driven to succeed and help people, which made you go through the challenges you had. So now she's the senior partner, and she does a lot of great work in setting the vision for the company. Absolutely.
Yeah, thinking back on the pregnancy piece, when when Honesty had her son, she was in the hospital in the delivery room. We're texting back and forth. She's still working from the labor room. I forgot all about that. Sending me reports to send off to
My goodness,
people.
yeah.
Good Lord, we come a long ways. I don't know if you can even do that anymore. Now, I guess if you love to work, it's okay.
I guess so.
So business is good.
This is good. Let me share one more story because
Sure.
this is what has accumulated when we as professionals in the insurance industry understand that this is a problem that no one really wants to talk about, right? You're not going to go into your boss and go, John, I got a problem. I think I'm addicted to alcohol, so I need some help. Like most employees won't do that. Or, John, I take cocaine and I can't stop. Some will. Most will never do that. So what do? They're ashamed to tell their spouse, their family. They think they've done something wrong, and they stay in that, and you know that.
Yeah.
So by bringing this out, this press release, I say Millen Group seeks courageous employers to take on the addiction epidemic.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man.
Courageous was a little strong word. I got some pushback on that. It was a little snappy, and I wanted to get a little bit of a jab to get your attention because you're going against a $4 trillion industry. That's what you're fighting against. So
who would push back on that wording? Was it your friends, your family?
I won't say, but some people are like, that was a little strong. You should have tamed it down. Like, no, I want to cause a little bit of.
I thought it was great written, man. It was a good
Thank
job.
you.
Good job.
I mean, it wasn't meant to offend people or say don't have courage, but some things that we see in our industry, you have to be able to do something different, and that takes courage.
We used to have a board member. He's passed away. Great guy, great board member, great veteran. But anytime we use languages that could parallel or associate with the veteran, he didn't like it. You know what I mean? He thought it would take away from the veteran's glory. And I said, man, don't worry about that stuff, man.
Yep. So let me tell you another story. I get a call from, and again,
are y'all hiring though?
At this point, we are always looking for good talent. I wouldn't say we're in a hiring spree, but we're always looking for good people.
Right
so
person, right time.
Absolutely.
Might happen.
We hire the person, and then we can teach them the skills.
Right.
I don't want someone that's really smart but doesn't have a good heart, because that's not a good fit.
Everybody wants to work.
That's not a good fit. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I get a call. I get a call from a client. They have an employee that had a seizure on the job. The employee went to the ICU. They were going through alcohol detox. They had apparently had some lapse in employment days in the past, and the employer called me to say, we have disability insurance, which basically is paycheck protection that the employer paid. We put that in. It pays the employee. I don't know whether to do that claim, whether we should fire him because this and this and this happened. And in the moment, and this was accumulation of stuff, the technical answer would have been, well, your handbook says 3 days out of work, you can be fired. In Virginia, it's fire at will. But in that case, the handbook says that would have been the technical answer. But that's not what I said. I said,
he's got an illness, man. He's seeking help. He needs help. That's what it's for. So don't get in trouble. What'd you say? It's okay.
it was emotional.
Yeah.
The call.
Man's life's at risk.
I said, it's probably not his fault. What if, instead of thinking of firing him, and I don't remember if this is exactly what I said, but will the disability coverage cover him? Yes, because that's the one we built you. We built the coverage like it should be built, so when times like this, it will pay him. So yes, but he is probably struggling alone. If this is happening at work, he is going through something mentally with the addiction. And what I've learned, and I've been around people my whole life that have had these issues that I've learned from, there is an emotional component that they're trying to escape, right? There's the emotional stress, and then there's the addiction of the brain, and it's fighting for his attention. What if we tried to get him some help? Like there's great facilities. You're a facility. There's lots of facilities in Richmond. Get him into a facility, but don't treat him like he's an outcast. Because I said, what if he would have had cancer? Would you still call me?
You're a kidney failure, whatever. You know what I mean?
A brain disease, a brain tumor.
Yeah.
No. But yet, because it's a substance, we attach something to it, and
Yeah.
that's okay. That's how people are thinking, but that's why you do what you do, and we're doing what we're doing, because I don't think I could have swayed the decision. But if I would have said, "Hey, fire him,"
Right.
now would that have made an impact on the person seeking advice? I don't know if it would have caused them to change it, but that would have been very different than, what if, let's get him some help, tell him we're on his side, and get him into some treatment, because he's probably a pretty good person. And that's the route they took. So I'm starting to realize that we have lots of ability to influence people. Not everyone wants it, but it didn't make sense just to kick someone out or throw them in jail.
Yeah, I'm reflecting back in the Marine Corps when I was in between my second and third deployment. I had 5 Article 15s. The Marine Corps could have kicked me out, but the colonel, he said, you know what? President Reagan says before we kick anybody out, we got to cycle them through a rehab on base. This is it, And so the Marine Corps at the time, the taxpayers, I calculated they spent $1,500 on me at the time, back in 1982. Fast forward, I have paid literally well over $1 million in taxes, well over. Between my family household,
Sure.
it could be
Sure.
2 or 3. I don't know how many million, but the impact I've had in the community, you can look around. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying. So a small, legitimate investment at the right time the downstream effect can be incredible. And had they passed the buck, you know what I mean? Then the problem might have got worse, and somebody else would have had to deal with it. So
Absolutely.
this employer at that time, he did the right thing, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad they called me. And so this is why we're a little aggressive. I'm becoming a little more aggressive in a good way of saying, hey,
and you got answers too.
I got some answers,
Yeah,
but it's
that
not a
was-
silver bullet. I tell
yeah.
people, look, I don't have a magic wand. I'm not Harry Potter. I can do some things, but at least have the conversation, use your common sense, and say enough is enough. I'm going to get some different feedback, because these things are available. Just because you haven't heard of them doesn't mean it's not true. It just means you haven't heard of them.
Now, I got to ask, you seem like a very compassionate, loving, kind, understanding person. Did this come natural for you? Do you have experience in this area? Did you have friends, families, you? Where's this come from?
I'm 55, so certainly have had my share of
Experiences.
things when I think back. When you have situations like this, your brain goes back to history and goes, "Ooh, that." I don't want to say what kind of family member it was, but there's this, and wow, that was probably that, and oh my gosh, this story that I heard. So it's all those memories are coming back to that was in my family. Now, I didn't have a bad childhood. I had a great childhood.
Right.
So it wasn't something that I was trying to run away from, but it was all the experiences. And then I'm taking all the employees we see,
Right.
and it's kind of all coming in at one time. And yeah, I'm a compassionate person. I want to help people. That's why I don't sell insurance, because I like insurance. Tell me that. It's what
It's
it
like
does.
that insurance commercial. The guy hates buying insurance.
It's who likes to sell insurance? But I like helping people with the process.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So, moving forward just a little bit, these custom plans. Have you noticed, because you touched on mental health addiction parity in that press, which was pretty damn good, how they rolled it out years ago, and now just getting the states to comply. I want to ding on the State Corporation Commission for a minute here. Because the truth is, back in the early 80s, when I got clean, insurance was great. They had treatment centers, and every hospital in Richmond had a treatment center. Everyone had a treatment center. And they had freestanding treatment centers all around Richmond, St. John's, Westbrook, just to name a couple. But all the hospitals had 28-day, 42-day inpatient rehabs, and insurance paid for all that. And we didn't have a big criminal justice system back in the early 80s. That was before the war on drugs was fully funded. And so when the health maintenance organizations come along, the HMOs, they quit paying and reimbursing for treatment, basically. And they gutted the mental health world. That's why every day you seem to read about a mental health situation where somebody, in the worst cases, they get killed. Well, that's because if these hospitals could get adequately reimbursed, they'd have rehabs, they'd have mental health facilities. So that's where the special interest comes in. So this federal law has been in effect, I want to say 2008, when that TARP bill got passed, the bailout
right.
bill.
Yep.
That they passed that TARP bill under the mental health bill, the parity bill. And here we are in 2023, and we still are. A lot of states and state governments are allowing insurance companies to basically toy with that federal law. You know, how they're going to implement it. And they let people get away with a lot of stuff. And it's special interest driven. I get it.
Yep.
You might want to look into that just a little bit too, you know.
And I've experienced that because we would get calls. It happened to us one year. We had a deductible or something in one of the plans we had, and instead of paying the copay for PCP for a visit to mental health, like a counselor,
Right.
we were getting charged $200 or $300. And we're like, wait a minute, what about mental health parity? And like the whole system, it had been in effect, but no one was complying. That's what I was referring
Yeah.
to. And then we get employees that call us, why is it not the same? Why is it the cost difference? And it's still happening. Why? No one's enforcing it.
Well, you got to appeal.
Oh, I mean, what employee is going to spend time to do that?
Exactly.
Nobody. So they get frustrated with the system, and it's been around. It should be enforced, but it hasn't been. That's where. So I brought this too, just as a visual. I don't know if you can see how thick this is. This is the most recent law that was passed in 2021. Called the Consolidated Appropriations Act, CAA. Now, I'm not going to read this to you today unless you want me to, but I printed it. This is double-sided. This has already been in law, and most employers don't know about it. And what this is saying, it says a lot of stuff. One is hospital pricing transparency. You're starting to see that on the news now.
Yeah, you got to get it. You got to know what you're paying when you go to the
paying
hospital,
for.
which is bullshit. They're not going to tell you everything. It's not going to happen, man.
Do you know how many, for the same procedure, do you know how many different prices are set for most procedures in one hospital? Take a guess.
Oh,
For
dozens.
the same thing. 140.
Well, there you go.
Medicare, Medicaid, private, cash pay, it's all different. This is supposed to help with that. It's slowly starting up. This also says to employers, you now have a legal responsibility, no matter how big you are, to look at the money you spend and the money your employees spend and manage it, just like the 401k industry went through in 2018. That is unknown. So this is the other part of our outreach is like, are you even familiar with there's like 3 or 4 things in there that you need to be really aware of, and still it's slow. What I think is going to happen, John, and I'm already getting a sense of this, is that this will be enforced when attorney law firms get involved. It's not going to probably be the
always
government.
is, yeah.
They're going to start suing, class action lawsuits, and that's when people will start waking up.
And they calculate that. Insurance companies calculate that. They say, you know what, we can drag this on for 14 years, like the Teflon case from West Virginia, man, or
That's
16 years. And it's like, this is nothing.
That's right.
We'll make way more money than not doing it than doing it.
Yep.
And that's how they think and they operate and they roll, man. It's a crazy world we live in.
It is. It is. One thing that's changed, it's fascinating, pre-COVID, post-COVID, before COVID, employees could say, I could be interviewing for your job, and I'd say, do you have benefits? And you say, yes. Great. That's all I need. Now, shortly into COVID, they would say, do you have benefits? Yes. What is it? Oh, we have a PPO plan. Okay. Today's employees, and how do I know this? Because we have given our clients a 2-pager that it summarizes all the benefits with the rates. Now they say, do you have benefits, John? Yes. Can I see the coverage and what I have to spend? They're digging into the benefits before they accept. So what we do, if you have a good plan, is you give it to them during the interview and say, look how good our plan is. But unfortunately, lots of plans are not so great. So that has shifted. So if you want a good employee, if you want to attract and retain employees, it's no longer just the salary and the mission. It's got to be a combination of everything.
When you get your employee benefit plan, right, it's usually a folder with, 4 or 5 pages in there.
Yep.
But you look at that stack of papers, that's what's really in that folder right there.
That's right.
And it's like, oh, my God, this is nuts, man. No
Yep.
wonder we're so screwed up.
Yep.
Good Lord,
But that's
man.
the stuff we like to do. We like to educate and engage and empower. We like to use our common sense because insurance can be very tricky. I don't know everything. I'm learning. I've not figured it. I figured the solution out. I just work with a lot of other people that are working towards the same mission. But when it comes to drug, alcohol, mental health, I wanted to say, look, if you have a company between at least 40 on medical, you have a chance of building your own plan and putting in the coverage that you want.
Forgot where I was going to go with that quick question there. But, okay, like how many, like your firm, right? How big's your firm?
We have 4 employees and 2 contractors, so six total.
And then, like, how many people like us you got? What are we, a customer? What do you
Yeah,
call us?
we have around 130 clients.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Are you part of a trade association, insurance association? They still got those?
So the insurance, there's the National Association of Health Underwriters. There's the Virginia Association of Health Underwriters. They've gone through a name change, and then every state has these organizations.
You're
So,
an independent agent.
independent agent.
Is
right.
there an independent agents association or?
I'm sure there is. Yeah, there's all kinds of
you're not a
associations,
member?
as you know. Yeah.
My dad used to be the vice executive director of the Virginia Independent Insurance Agency Association.
Okay,
Years
yeah.
ago, back in the 70s, they were pretty powerful.
Yeah, I know that rings a bell. There is an independent.
Yeah, he actually, when he was working back then, he's the one that went to the General Assembly and got the breathalyzer bill passed.
No kidding.
Yeah, he actually testified in the committee. This is in the 70s, might have been the late 60s, early 70s. But he actually went to the GA drinking vodka, blowing in the thing, and I think
That'll get some attention.
They made him sit tight, wouldn't let him drive home. So one more time, what, like health insurance, what does it cost now for typical? And an employer pays a percentage, or how does that work?
So if an employer wants to provide health care, they usually have to pay 50% of the employee rate,
Right.
whatever that is. And you can have rates that are as low as $300 a month or as much as $800 a
Right.
month. It depends on where it
But
is.
normally the employer pays half.
Typically, the insurance companies require,
Right.
and the law requires, they pay at least 50%.
But they can pay it all.
They can't pay it all, which is the trend.
Right,
So we say, how much do you pay? 50%. Why are you not paying 60?
right.
Well, we only have to pay 50. Well, that means someone that wants family coverage, they have to make up the spread.
Right.
And that's become a problem now because the costs are going up. They're doubling it every 7 years. So the costs have gone up. Now the family coverage is so expensive.
Right.
And
I remember
that's-
when I ran a paint company for 30 years, I was a paint contractor, and I provided insurance, and I paid half, they paid half. And I was just stunned at the amount of painters that wouldn't get insurance.
Oh, sure.
I said, are you kidding me? I mean, back then, a policy, I think it was under $100 a month. So all they got to do is pay like $30, $40 a month to match it.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't you realize, and I was trying to retain good employees, but I guess back then, a lot of transient business, the paint business. So
we still see that today with, part of it is when you look at the cost in the plan coverage that's in place, they're saying, why am I going to spend $50 a paycheck to then have the privilege of spending $5,000 out of pocket before it kicks in?
right. Do they still have co-op? When I was part of the Painters Association, we had a co-op so we could go to.
Where you kind of banded together?
Yeah.
Boy, I get asked that question frequently. I don't think so. There might be. I'm just not familiar with it.
Yeah.
The insurance companies still look at each entity and they risk it the
Right.
same. And here's the other thing that people find shocking is that bigger is not better when it comes to insurance.
Right.
People think the more people you have on your plan, the better.
The cheaper it should be. But
It isn't.
if you got a bunch of old people, it's higher.
You do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the issue is what are you doing with the claims? So you can
Right.
have a small company with small claims, or you can have a big company with big claims. It's not the size; it's the amount.
Right.
It's managing the money coming through.
And
difference.
with the Affordable Care Act, how's that worked out as far as pre-existing conditions? They can't charge us so much, right?
So the ACA had some good things
Right.
and had some things that aren't so good. Just like anything, the law of unintended consequences. So the ACA basically says you can't discriminate from pre-existing, which I think personally is good.
Right.
I like that. The piece that they remember when things go in place, I don't think people intentionally think it's going to be a certain way. They don't know 10 years later. But what it has done is it's driven up the pricing faster.
Right.
Because it said employers or the insurance companies have to spend 85 cents of every dollar on claims. And so the only way they make more money is to raise the top line. And that's what's driven the acceleration faster.
I noticed insurance companies make a lot of money.
Crap load of money.
Yeah, 85% they got to spend on claims.
Yep. So if you have to make more money, you're not going to make it by reducing claims. You're going to make it by charging more. Which is why you have 140 different prices
Right.
for a knee replacement at one hospital. So commercial payers, all my clients
I got
pay the
friends.
most.
Yeah, I got friends that own treatment centers, and they all complain. we should be getting this, but we got to negotiate with the insurance company.
Right.
This is all they'll pay.
Right.
And then they come back 2 years later and do your books and they tell them, well, look, you made too much money off of us. You got to give us some back. I mean, where does that come from? But that's probably deep in the weeds.
It is, but it's still common sense that if you're going to send a bunch of money to the insurance company, you have no control. And if you like that, stay with that. It's a retail plan. Right. Or if you want to control the money, you can take control.
Are some insurance companies better than others? I don't want to get you in trouble, but they pretty much are all the same.
I think they're different. I don't know if they're better. I don't think better or worse is, they're. I don't know that's. I would say they're better or worse. Like there's smaller entities, there's larger entities. They all have their challenges. They're trying to contain costs, but yet they make more money, as you see in their stock.
I wonder why they don't have do they have charity insurance companies where they don't take no profits, everything goes into claims? Any of those out there?
That's a good question. I don't know. There might be. There are ministry plans. You might have heard.
I get life insurance from Knights of Columbus.
Okay. There's a ministry plan. It's escaping me, but it's a health plan for individuals where it's cost sharing for people with a certain faith.
Right.
They share. That would be something along the lines, but that's for individuals.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
I wonder if anybody can get that, or you got to be that faith, man.
I don't know.
Got to go to the altar to get that one.
I don't know.
Anything else you can think of you want to cover?
I think so. I really applaud the efforts you've done, and I think you have done a remarkable job, and anything we can do to help, at least start the communication of it. I think what we would help too is we need, and I don't know if you agree with this, we need some influencers. We need people. Look, our society. If the Kardashians say something on Instagram, they sell out.
They do.
They get $1 million to post one thing. That's fine. Hey, you've earned it. That's okay. But you get someone like Grant Cardone, who had a drug problem when he was younger. He talks about it openly. You get someone like Grant Cardone, who has a lot of influence. If we start engaging people like that to get into the mix, people start listening at a little different level than little John in Richmond. Yeah. Or you get someone, I actually printed a list. I was shocked the number of people affected. Elon Musk.
Oh, by addiction?
Addiction. Matthew Perry from Friends.
Yeah, I know most. I'm going down the list. I know a lot
and
of
those are all publicly listed. I'm not sharing anything private.
Right.
But you get some influencers, even Rob Kardashian from the Kardashians has had an issue. You get some of these people that say, hey, I want to speak out. Matthew Perry went on he's been on the news recently talking about it and relinquishing the stigma of being able to talk about it.
That was recently, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, I think I caught that recently. I've seen a handful of these people personally at events and stuff. It's like they bring them out to give big speaking talks and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I know one thing. If I was looking for a provider, a broker for insurance, I'd definitely call you at the Millen Group.
Oh, thanks, John.
You're the first guy I'm referring from here on out, man.
I appreciate
So
it.
that's a good hit right there.
I appreciate
it. Of course, a lot of folks don't ask me, but if they do, I want to say, you got to call our guy.
Thanks.
And
I have a great team. It's not just me, right? It's Laura.
I know. Laura's awesome.
And we got the rest of our team, too. It's not just me.
And I'm curious as to how this custom policy works out moving forward, build that stuff in like you said. Because that's important, Are there other illnesses you can build in?
You can cover whatever you want.
So
here's an example. When you build your own plan, it's like building a custom home. If you tell the builder, I want to recycle the rainwater from the roof, from the gutters, and I want to recycle it in the toilets. They do that
in Bermuda, all the houses catch their own water.
No problem. We just build it in. So you build in the coverage. So if at any one point, mental health, if you want those visits to be zero, instead of $25, $50, $100, it's zero.
You build it in,
and you're paying you're paying a reduced fee in the plan because it's wholesale pricing, so you can afford to do it, and it's going to help your employees.
Wholesale pricing.
Wholesale.
Build in what you want to look for.
Wholesale.
I
Costco.
love it. Well, we appreciate you coming in today, man.
This has been fun.
I'm glad you doubled back. And I'll see you real soon, I'm sure.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, folks, very much, and more be revealed. We will see you soon. Thank you.